What if I told you that in just one private test, Lewis Hamilton has discovered something that Ferrari had not understood for years? And that right now could completely change the course of the 2026 season. Because what Charles Leclerc and Frédéric Vasseur have seen after analyzing that data is not normal. It is not just another improvement. It is such a big difference in the way of driving, in the way of generating performance, that it has left the team completely shocked. We are talking about telemetry so perfect, so repeatable, that for the first time Ferrari really understands its car. But at the same time, this opens up an uncomfortable question. What if the SF26 is not made for Leclerc, but for Hamilton? Because here it's not just about who is faster. It's about who is shaping the future of Ferrari from within. The test at Fiorano was, in theory, nothing more than another private session within Ferrari's development calendar. Without media pressure, without official timers to mark headlines. But what happened on the track completely changed the internal perception of the team. Because from Lewis Hamilton's first runs, the engineers began to see something that didn't fit with anything they had analyzed up to that point. It was not a question of going faster on an isolated lap, nor of setting a spectacular time that would attract attention. It was much deeper. Every turn Hamilton took generated exactly the same pattern. Same braking, same transition, same use of the accelerator, same hybrid energy management. A surgical precision that turned each turn into an almost perfect copy of the previous one. And in a regulation like 2026, where every detail of the power system and active aerodynamics defines performance, that consistency is not just impressive, it's revolutionary. Inside the box, the reaction was immediate. For the first time in a long time, the simulator data began to coincide with what was happening on the track. That old problem that Ferrari had been carrying for years, that constant disconnection between what they thought they had and what really worked, was beginning to disappear. And all thanks to a way of driving that did not seek the absolute limit in each corner, but rather total efficiency in each phase of the car. When Charles Leclerc sat down to review that telemetry, the impact was even greater. Because there I was not only seeing data, I was seeing two completely opposite philosophies coexisting in the same car. On the one hand, his aggressive style, based on squeezing the car to the maximum, on looking for that extra bit at each corner entry, on constantly playing at the limit. And on the other, Hamilton's approach, cleaner, more progressive, more calculated, but incredibly effective. The comparison left no room for doubt. The SF26 was most responsive when driven as Hamilton did. Not because Leclerc was failing, but because the DNA of the car, under the new regulations, seemed to naturally align with that more technical and precise style. It was at that moment when an idea began to emerge within the team that until then no one had dared to raise out loud. And this was no longer just about immediate performance. This was in the direction of development. Because if the clearest, most reliable and most useful data came from that approach, then Ferrari had to make a key decision: continue to evolve the car around what they had always done, or start building it around what now for the first time really works. That is where the figure of Frédéric Vasseur comes in. Because his subsequent statements were neither casual nor diplomatic. They were the reflection of an uncomfortable reality. The car still does not completely fit Leclerc, but it has shown an immediate connection with Hamilton. And that, within a team like Ferrari, changes absolutely everything. From this moment on, the Fiorano test stops being a simple test and becomes the starting point of something much bigger. A new direction, a new philosophy, and possibly a new internal hierarchy that is still beginning to take shape. As Ferrari delved into the analysis of that test in Fiorano, what initially seemed like a specific advantage for Lewis Hamilton began to transform into something much more uncomfortable, and at the same time much more decisive. Because the more the engineers compared the data, the more evident a reality became. It wasn't just a difference in style, it was a difference in the way of understanding the car. The problem is that this placed Charles Leclerc in an extremely delicate position. For years, Ferrari had built its development around his talent, his ability to push the car to the limit in difficult conditions, even on weekends where the car was not up to par, as had already been seen in difficult moments where performance did not reflect the team's true potential. But now, for the first time, data suggested that approach may not be the most efficient path under the new rules. And this is where the situation becomes really tense within the team. Because Ferrari cannot ignore what it is seeing. Hamilton telemetry is not only cleaner, it's more useful. It allows you to better understand the behavior of the car, facilitates work in the simulator, and above all, opens the door to much more precise development. In other words, accelerates the team's progress. This forces Frédéric Vasseur to face a decision that could mark the entire season. Should Ferrari continue to evolve the SF26 around the aggressive styling that has defined its recent identity? Or should it pivot entirely toward a more technical, more efficient, more Hamilton approach? Because you cannot follow both paths at the same time without losing performance in the process. Meanwhile, inside the garage, the pressure begins to be felt. Not only does Leclerc have to adapt to a car that doesn't fit naturally with his driving style, but he now also knows that his new teammate has found a way to get more out of the same car. And what's worse, to do it more consistently. And in modern Formula One, consistency is everything. It's not just about a brilliant return, it's about being able to repeat that performance over and over again, about building on reliable data, about allowing every update to make sense. That is exactly what Hamilton has put on the table. And that is what Ferrari had been searching for years without success. Therefore, the impact of this test does not remain in Fiorano. It begins to project itself directly into the immediate future of the team. Updates that are on the way, especially with an eye on key races on the calendar, can no longer be designed without taking this new internal reference into account. Because now Ferrari knows what works, but accepting that means changing many things. And therein lies the real conflict. It is not technical, it is structural. Because if Ferrari decides to follow the path outlined by Hamilton's data, it will not only be evolving the car, it will be redefining the balance within the team. And when that happens in a team like Ferrari, the consequences are never small. And this is where everything ends up falling into place, or breaking within Ferrari. Because after processing every piece of data, every lap and every comparison, the team no longer has room to ignore what happened in Fiorano. The conclusion is as clear as it is uncomfortable. They have found a development direction that works, but it is not the one they had followed until now. This makes Lewis Hamilton not only a competitive driver, but the team's new technical benchmark. And that completely changes the rules of the game. Because in Formula One, when a driver begins to mark the path of development, he stops being just another piece. He becomes the axis around which everything revolves. For Charles Leclerc, the challenge now is enormous. It is no longer just about being fast, but about adapting to a philosophy that is not natural for him. He has to reinterpret his way of driving, modify his way of attacking corners, change his management of the car, all while competing at the highest level. And in such a demanding championship, that process waits for no one. Meanwhile, Leclerc Vasseur knows that he is facing a unique opportunity and an equally great risk. Because if Ferrari opts for this new direction and it works, they can become the team that sets the pace in the 2026 era. But if they make a mistake in the transition, if they fail to balance development, or if they generate an internal fracture among their drivers, the cost can be enormous. And all of this brings us to the real critical point of this story. It's not just who is faster. It's not just who leads within the team. It's something much deeper. Who is defining the future of Ferrari? Because what happened in Fiorano was not a simple test. It was the moment in which Ferrari understood something it had been searching for years. And now that he has found it, he can't ignore it. From here on, every evolution, every decision and every result on the track will be marked by that revelation. And the big question that remains in the air is inevitable. Will Lewis Hamilton be the man who returns Ferrari to the top, or the one who ends up changing the team more than they were prepared to accept? And in the end, it all comes down to one thing. Ferrari has found a truth that it had been searching for years, but that now completely changes its reality. Because what that test at Fiorano revealed was not simply Lewis Hamilton's performance. It was a new way of understanding the car, a real foundation on which to build, something that finally connects the simulator with the track in a clear and direct way. The problem is that this discovery does not fully fit with what they had built around Charles Leclerc. And therein lies the real breaking point. Because Ferrari now has two paths: stay true to its recent identity, or bet on what the data is screaming works. And in Formula One, when the data speaks so clearly, ignoring it is never an option. This makes 2026 much more than a season. It's a transition. It is a change of philosophy. It is the moment when Ferrari decides who leads its future from within, not only on the track, but in the development of the car. Because if something has become clear after Fiorano, it is that Hamilton has not arrived just to compete. He has arrived to transform. And now the big question is no longer whether Ferrari will be competitive. The real question is, are they ready to become the team Hamilton can build? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.